This is It's Not in the Syllabus podcast, the how-tos of a student beyond classroom walls. This is the podcast where you, yes you, get to learn what they don't teach you at school and ace that test called life, or at least get a passing grade and get by. It's Not in the Syllabus is a podcast brought to you by the Adventist International Institute of Advanced Studies, together with the Student Association, where we feature stories by the students and for the students. Join us as we discover life lessons you'll surely need.
Welcome all, welcome one. We are delighted to be here together. We are going to talk about boundaries in relationship. We are in episode 20 of It's Not in a Syllabus. And today with me, I have two good friends, Campbell and Raquel. How are you guys doing?
Doing okay.
Doing fine.
Doing good?
Fine.
It's good
Thank
to
you
have you.
for having us.
All right, it's good to have you guys here. Let me briefly introduce them. Campbell is an ordained minister of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. He's currently a Ph.D. candidate in Old Testament at AIIAS, and they are from Jamaica.
Yes.
I hope I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And Raquel is a medical technologist,
Yes.
and she's currently a master candidate of the same degree. So today we are going to talk about boundaries in relationship. And for those who are watching us, we want to set the stage by saying when we are talking about boundaries currently here, we will be talking about specifically for couples, correct?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
let us now understand, how do you describe boundaries? Because as we begin any conversation, it's usually nice to operationalize the definition of the topic. So how do you then describe boundaries?
Right. Okay. Boundaries refers to limits or guidelines that define acceptable or unacceptable behavior for each partner.
Yes. And with that said, if we, for those of us who are more visual, basically, if you've ever walked into a jewelry store,
All right.
you would notice those very expensive pieces, the diamond, those nice blingy wedding rings, and you never notice that they're just out in the open. There's always a case that is, over them to protect them.
Yeah.
And the reason that you want to protect them is that there's some unscrupulous characters going around that, might do something to it. And if you look at it that way, you could visualize your relationship, your marriage as a jewelry.
All right.
I don't know what you want to call yours, sapphire, diamond, I don't know, or plain old gold. But whatever it is, you want to ensure that you protect that relationship, that you protect that marriage because it's precious to you, it's important. And if you want to protect it, one thing that you have to do, as Kenroy mentioned, is that you need to have a case around it. And that case is called a boundary, a limit to say, hey, if we want this relationship to work, if we want this marriage to work, there's some characters going around that will not enter it. So we put in a boundary around it to say, hey, stop.
Stop from
When
here.
you see this case, back up.
Don't go
Yes,
there.
don't go there. Yes. So I think it's
it's
something like that.
It's good that you've said the tone of our definition of what is boundary.
Yeah.
And particularly when you said example of jewelry, I was like, oh, Adventists don't go to jewelry store. But
We'll walk on it in heaven. We'll walk it.
I hope you were able to visualize the concept in a correct manner.
Yes.
So one thing that you mentioned is you need to set a boundaries where one person can go and can't go.
Right.
But this is something that I've been dealing with. For those who are married, you become one. That's biblical, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So you are one. I think this is for the Old Testament guy. You become one. But why then setting boundaries in relationship when you are one?
That's a good question.
Yes, because even though you are one in terms of union, you are also two individuals, and you have individualities. As such, you have perspectives. You think differently on certain topics, and so boundaries become very important in that. And my wife will elaborate a little more on that.
Yeah, you.
Oh, before we go that, don't lose your thought. You say even if you are married, you are one, you are different individuals.
Yes.
Briefly, what are some of your boundaries?
Mm.
Don't forget
some
what
of
you're gonna
our-
say, because I'm gonna come back to
Yeah.
that again. What are some of your
What are
boundaries?
some of our boundaries?
Well,
Be
You
careful
want
what
me
you
to
say,
tell
man.
you?
all right.
If I say it, it's okay, right?
Go ahead, go ahead,
But
go ahead.
before coming here, while we were in ministry, in terms of in the district, one important
Yeah.
boundary we set is that for him as a pastor, I have to know my place when I go to church. I don't mean this in a rude way, but the boundary set that if we're at church and there's a discussion, the voice, the authoritative voice, even if I'm more knowledgeable in it than him, the authoritative voice that comes out should be the pastor. So
right.
that boundary was established very early in our relationship that I'm a med tech, he's a pastor. When we go to church, he functions as the pastor, I support him.
Okay.
Because he can't come to the lab and say, hey, this is how you read the blood. This is no,
No, he
there's a
can't.
boundary. So that's one of the boundary that we have set in our relationship to maintain. So there's individuality when we go to church. Even if I know the correct answer, I don't get up and say, no, I allow the pastor
To do his job.
to do his job. But in close area, when we're together, I can say, oh, you could do it this way next time, but never in public do I get up to sound like I am the pastor while
see.
he's there. So that's a boundary that we
Yeah.
have.
And to add to that, it is to respect each other's expertise
Okay.
and accept that even though you may have a different perspective, particularly in the public,
Okay.
you allow each person who is knowledgeable on a particular, for example, she mentioned pastoral ministry. I'm a pastor. I was trained for 4 years in this. Of course, she can have a valid point, but it's the way she bring that point about in the public. So it's respecting each other's expertise. It's very, very important, because there are times when a spouse gets challenged on his own expertise by his or her spouse in the public, and that can cause the relationship to be sour, if you want to put it that way. It doesn't portray well in the public.
Well, Raquel mentioned her boundaries, but what is your boundary?
Well, she mentioned same thing. She shared with us.
So when you go to a lab, you don't put yourself into it.
Yes, definitely.
You got to respect that. So let's come back to what we just so go ahead.
Right. He mentioned individuality. That's very important. Yes, we join as two to become one, but sometimes we get so caught up in becoming two that we don't set boundaries, and very soon, a year into the relationship, you can't see Raquel. You only see Kenroy. You can't see Kenroy, you only see Raquel. As loving as we should be, and as two joining one that we should be, there should always be some uniqueness to us, because we're created by God. God created us to be unique individuals, and it's that unique thing about us that attracted us in the very first place. So you don't want to lose it. You want to keep it, to keep that fire burning, to keep the spark going, Yes, you know where I'm going, to keep that marriage going. Yes, so
I actually understand perfectly that there must be some boundaries. Although we are one, but we have our individualities, we have our own desires, our own goals. But I want to get into this idea that as I was doing this research, I came across with the point that there are some unhealthy boundaries. And there are some healthy boundaries. So, briefly, how do we set health boundaries, and what are some of the unhealthy boundaries?
Okay. I think, Brother Eddie, in setting healthy boundaries, we must first remind our audience that to set a boundary, you must have a value system. You must yourself have a limit. So to go into the marriage, going into the relationship, you must know where you want to go, how you want to go. So example, if honesty is very important to you, you must set out in the very first part with your husband, or to say that, okay, this is very important to me. So these are some things that we will not do to ensure that honesty is always there, transparency is always there. So you set it. When you set those boundaries, they should allow your relationship to grow. So if it's not growing, if it's becoming toxic, if it's becoming controlling, it means that you have set some unhealthy boundaries. Example, if my husband is an insecure person, say, hey, whenever you go outside, I don't want you talking to that. Don't say hi. Don't, those are more controlling. It becomes toxic and there's no growth. So as you make those boundaries, yes, you consider your value system and how it will help you grow, but at the same time you want to ensure there's growth. So if you see that you're becoming too constrictive and there's no growth, then you need to step back, reevaluate, because boundaries are not something that are absolute. They grow. So example, when we were dating, when we were courting, there was a 10 years ago, but there was a boundary to say, okay, we want to remain pure. So example, we don't go into
stop all there. Elaborate the purity stuff. Just
I think we're dealing with boundary, no? We're dealing with boundary, but
I
this
hope
is
you guys
important.
understand back home the purity. Single people, keep it pure. Let's continue.
Yes, it's very important for viewers to know that boundaries are not absolute. So as you grow in your relationship, your boundaries might change, but there's some value system that won't change. So example, when we were dating, we know that we should not go into secluded area. We shouldn't go into, too many dark areas. Try to avoid those areas. So that was a boundary as to how much we touch, what we do. Yes, married
we
folks.
get married, right?
But then when you become married, we became married February 22nd, 2016. When the pastor said you may kiss the bride, that boundary, that boundary stopped. It ceased.
I mean, that does not mean that kissing is wrong in courtship. That doesn't mean that, of course.
That's different.
Yeah, but
story.
I want to make it clear. So we're not saying that it is wrong. Of course, you do not want that to lead you to the next level.
All right.
So whereas it's not sin in and of itself, you want to ensure that it is controlled.
So those what I got from you is some health boundaries help a person to grow, help the relationship to flourish. The unhealthy boundaries, on the other way, control the person.
Yes,
tends
controls,
to control to restrict the person,
push the person to a corner.
The person to a corner, because although you are one, as we mentioned it, you are distinct.
Right.
You have different personalities.
That's true.
You have different points of views and so forth. Now, you are married. There's no doubt about it. I hope.
There's no doubt about it.
And it comes a point that, although we are setting boundaries, one of the things that couples I will not say all, but I've come across a few, is they are setting boundaries on the finances. It's going to be loaded. I hope we still have time to unpack it. Okay. They are setting boundaries into finances. My money is your money. You get it? My money is yours. Your money is yours. Don't you do whatever you want to do with your money. Another thing is we have social medias, and then don't ask my password. I don't ask your password. You understand? So these can in somehow cause problems. So how do you then
handle those? Okay.
Things? Begin with the finance.
Yes,
and then
finance.
With the social media.
If you want to have a healthy financial, a healthy relationship, where finance is concerned, to be able to have stability in your finance, it's important that you come together as a couple. My wife and I, we come together as a couple when we're in Jamaica. Both of us were working. Every month we pull our salary together and we make a budget.
All right.
We budget every single dollar. It means, therefore, that my wife cannot surprise me with a new car or surprise me with something expensive. Why? Because I know
that you like cricket.
because
She surprised you with the
cricket
cricket bat.
I know how much money
Yeah.
she has because we have made a budget together.
Sure.
Right? It doesn't mean she can't surprise me, but it would be almost impossible for her to just out of the blue surprise me with something beyond what she is allowed to spend outside of that outside of the things that we have or outside of the budget itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
As it relates to social media,
Yeah.
I think it's very important that we realize there's an essential boundary that we must set in relationship, and that's privacy.
All right.
So yes, you're my husband, I'm your wife, but I should give you that leverage, that trust.
Okay.
Yes, I could know your password, but if I don't know it, what will it do to the marriage? We should establish a level of trust. I shouldn't be sitting on my phone and, wondering, oh, is he... No, it shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
It should be open. There should be an openness in the relationship that allows us to know that that's my privacy, that's your privacy. Doesn't mean I can't know your password. Doesn't mean that.
Actually,
but-
there are couples who don't share passwords.
Well,
And
we
that's-
share
that's
passwords.
good.
Yeah, you guys share.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, we
good.
do.
That's
Yeah,
good
they don't
because you
share
need to
password.
maintain that privacy
Uh,
sometimes.
They will argue that I mean it's my private life. But then the question that we begin with is you are one, but
Yes.
is
You're
it-
also two individuals.
yeah, you're two individuals. So although what is yours, what is mine is mine, but we are now sharing things.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
You see,
I think also, Brother LD, that might come down to individuality.
All right.
For our marriage, I know my husband's password. Both of us know password, but I don't use it. I don't need to use it.
yeah, you have no
It
Facebook.
would be
I know that.
it would be a very extreme situation that I need to go and check that. So we keep that part to maintain our individuality.
And
at
then
the
what
same
will be
time.
what will be the advice that you will give for couples who say now, what is mine is mine, what is yours. So let us not go there. What will you advise particularly those couples?
Okay. I think first and foremost, before you get married, there are certain things that you need to discuss,
All right.
and privacy is one. So you need to know, both of you need to know that when you get married, whether or not you are able to be in each other's privacy as it relates to passwords or social media. So you need to know that ahead of time. In knowing that, you will decide whether or not this is the person that you want to go forward with, because there are persons who believe that if we are married, your life is my life is your life. So there is no way you should be hiding anything from me. There are persons who are very jealous, and so if they think you're hiding, it will cause it will be a problem for the relationship. So I think these things need to be settled before marriage. Now, what happens after marriage? Let's say before marriage, you decide that okay, we'll be okay. I'll be okay for you to have my password and stuff like that. But when I get into marriage, that changes.
Yeah.
Well, that will be a concern and a red flag as well, and one has to deal with that.
Wow. I like that. Before you get married, make sure you talk.
Yes, you got to talk.
Develop
Yes.
the communication.
That's true. Because boundaries must be set before. Otherwise, there's nothing that you can go
You
back
can
to.
build on.
Yes. So as I said, boundaries are not absolute. They change, but from the get-go, going into the relationship, there are 3 essential boundaries that we must consider. That's time,
Yeah.
that's privacy, and that's energy. So you must know here on AIIAS campus, I know the time is going, so I need to go fast. But here
No,
on
go ahead.
AIIAS campus, we came to AIIAS for study.
Yes.
But it can't be that all our time is taken up in the library. And when you leave after 5 years, 6 years, there's no spark. When you
I
look
hope-
at your wife, you're not excited.
I
There's
hope
nothing.
Campbell heard that.
Yeah, of course, I heard that and I know that. Yeah, so time,
Yeah,
as my
so
wife
time-
is saying,
time
is
is important.
very, very important. Time
what
is
you
very
give to your
important.
time, energy.
Yeah.
Don't spend all the day. Set boundaries. Don't spend all the day listening to others. That when you go home and you should be thinking about your husband, all you can think about is that teacher. All you can think about is that homework. Use the energy wisely. Yeah, that's.
So
what-
definitely, and I piggyback on time. Time is very important in your relationship.
Let's.
And I mean, we're talking about boundaries, but one of the things that married couples struggle with is unfaithfulness. And
Wow,
if you're
wow,
spending quality time at home, ensuring that sexual satisfaction is done, ensuring that things are taken care of, because the
I
point
knew you
is
would come to that.
We need that point.
this is important. As my wife said, we can get so caught up into schoolwork, get so caught up into
Church.
academics, into church, and we
Forget
forget
we
about
neglect.
the
Sexual
fire that needs to
satisfaction.
continue to spark
yeah,
at
yeah.
home. And so just as how you schedule your work, you should schedule sexual intercourse as well.
I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that. And actually, we will have an episode in May, hopefully, that will discuss about these things. But let me just hint a little bit as we wrap up.
Yes.
There are also, you mentioned 3 types of boundary. One of them is time, energy. There is also one thing about time, and for couple is sexuality.
Right.
Couples, married couples. Now, do you let me not put in the first person. Is it healthy to set boundaries for sexual intimacy?
Yes.
Of course.
There
Like
is.
by this I mean maybe 3 times a week, 2 times a week.
Well,
It depends on
couple.
the couples and their worldviews about sex and so forth, because I know a particular couple who believes that sex should only be had twice, not more than twice a week.
God bless them.
Well, God bless that couple. So it depends on the individual person. That's the reason these things need to be discussed before marriage.
Even if you
They must be
discuss
discussed.
before,
Yeah, because it can
it
change.
changes.
You
'Cause
shouldn't put limit.
women will always tell you, Campbell, don't forget your thought. I'm tired. Today I had a long.
No, you can get tired. You can be tired. We all get tired at times. But at the same time, all right, number one, you need to understand, each couple need to understand that sex is not a gift or a reward in the marriage.
All right.
Sex belongs to the marriage,
All right.
right? So it's not a reward.
Yeah.
It's not something you give because you get something.
I like that.
No, it's a part of the marriage.
All right.
So you can't put limit on it. Of course, a partner can be tired and the other one needs to, but it cannot be that every night you are tired.
I tell you.
But brother Eddie, yes, it's important to set boundaries. It's important to continue intimacy, and that's something that connects us. That's something that makes us one.
All right.
So if that's not happening, you're not one. That's the oneness there.
I like
well,
that.
this is my perspective, but that's what makes the oneness.
Oneness.
So if you want to, if you want to focus on that oneness and allow it to go, sometimes you have to structure it, especially if you're an AIIAS and Ph.D. running there, masters running there, children running there.
Yeah.
It's important to structure,
It's
but
time.
of course, spontaneous. That's also
Yes,
important.
definitely.
But it's good to structure.
Don't
No
set-
question.
Structure to schedule,
Those are the schedule.
because the schedule one, the atmosphere is going to be different than the
I tell you,
spontaneous
it's
one.
spontaneous.
Because
Okay.
preparation.
Okay, as we wrap this conversation, in a very brief minute, maybe I'll give you seconds. Is there anything we'd like to share with our audience out there about setting boundaries in relationship? Maybe let me give you 20 seconds
20
each.
seconds. Okay. Yes. View your relationship and your marriage as a jewelry.
Alright.
That's how I view mine.
Adventists don't go to jewelry.
We'll be walking on streets of gold when we get to heaven. But it's view it as the word of God.
All right.
It's something that you need to treasure. It's something that you need to invest in. And if you want your relationship to be a true investment, you need to protect it. How are you going to protect it? Set boundaries, set limits with the time that you give to others, with the energy you use listening to other things, and with the privacy. And when you, at least those three things, when you set those boundaries, your marriage will grow. The oneness will be realized.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
It is okay to set boundaries, and all of us know how to set boundaries. But the most important thing is not just to set boundaries, it is to maintain those boundaries.
Correct.
And maintaining the boundaries that you set will definitely depend on whether or not your relationship grows and goes forward. So maintaining your relationship is very, very important. The things you do, for example, understanding each other's love language
Right.
will be a weapon, a catalyst through which you can maintain some of those boundaries. And when I said love language, you cannot love somebody the way you want to be loved. Because it may not be that's the way that person wants to be loved. And so you got to know what is it that the person appreciates. There are some people who likes to touch. There are others who like quality times to sit and talk and so forth. So you got to feed each other's love language. And in doing that, I believe that maybe 70 or 80% of your boundaries will maintain.
Great. Wow. Those are healthy boundaries. I want to thank you guys for sharing with us. It's packed. I think we could have even more time, but unfortunately we will not have time. But the brief time that we had, I was able to learn. I hope you guys at home were also able to learn that it's necessary to set boundaries. I remember healthy boundaries, and when you do so, make sure you understand your love language, and when you do that, your boundaries will be valued, will be respected, and will be appreciated. With this, we'd like to thank you. This an amazing couple that I had here with me today. And then just particularly as we close, this month, the month of March, we have been dealing with relationships. We discussed about several themes about relationship. And we are going to close the month. And I don't want to close this particular month without appreciating people that have been working for this podcast. And how do you do relationship without appreciation, right? So now I have not told them that. I want to call those who are behind the camera. I want to call our director, Easty, to come up here. I want to call Arnold to come up here. They will be on camera. I hope by the time they come, they'll also be visible in your camera, in your TV screen. Come here. I want to tell you guys, those are the people that have been working so hard. Come, don't be afraid. So you stay close to here, and then Campbell will do the closing prayer. Those are the people who have been working to have this podcast. I believe we also want to thank the AIIAS administration in the person of Sir Bruce, who has been particularly keen giving us direction on what to do, what to present, what to represent AIIAS in the best way, and above all, how to bring subjects that we don't learn in the class setting, because the idea of this podcast, it's not in the syllabus. So today I want to thank you. Arnold is our media guy, our genius, and this is Easty, our director and producer. So with that, Campbell, will you mind close this month of relationship with a word of prayer?
All right. Let us pray. Father in heaven, we are grateful, Lord, for this opportunity to discuss boundaries in relationship. We thank you for this month that has focused on relationship. We ask that you will continue to lead and bless this podcast, the people who are behind it, the SA president and her team. Pray that you'll continue to bless them, continue to give them the wisdom, the knowledge, and all that they need to continue to move forward with this. We thank you and we praise you. And for those who have listened, we ask that you will bless them. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. I almost forgot. Kimberly, you're also part of this team and the SA together. God bless you and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.